Hey, it's Ryan from Upfit Supply, and in this video we're going to be installing some DuraTherm ceiling liners in our RAM ProMaster City. Let's get into it. All right, like I said, we are installing the DuraTherm ceiling liners from Legend in our 2016 RAM ProMaster City. The installation is going to be the same for all model years as well as the Canadian version. There just might be some variation depending on if you have a factory bulkhead or a different bulkhead, or if you have these black trim panels in or not. But we do not have a partition in yet. We're going to be installing a couple different ones. So I'm actually going to try and install this liner without having to trim at all up at the front. But depending on your partition or your bulkhead, you may need to do some minor trimming at the front, but it's really easy to do, just like a box cutter or an X-Acto knife. Really simple to trim that to fit. But we're going to install this first, then see what it's like with conflicting with installing our bulkhead, and then make any minor adjustments we need then. So let's get started. These are just held in with, looks like we do have a bolt up here, but we just have two Phillips head screws here. 10mm bolt here. Now, one thing to note, this is shipped to work with US and Canadian models. And so on the back, this is towards the front of the ceiling liner. You can see there's scoring in here, depending if you have a US model, Canadian model, depending on if you have a factory bulkhead or not. But if you're in the US, you have to remove this little portion right here or to get it to fit in the van. If you have a Canadian model, you can leave that in place. But you may also need to do some minor trimming up front here depending on what you got going on for the bulkhead. I'm gonna try and leave as much material in place as possible because we're gonna do a couple different bulkheads up there, so we just wanna make sure that we're not removing too much material. It's easier to remove material than to add it back in. So we're gonna start just by trimming this piece out. You can see it's already pre-scored and pretty easy to follow with a razor blade. I just have a box cutter here. It's gonna get through it nice and easily. Second side done. All right, I'm just gonna get a couple of these plastic clips ready to go because I'm a one-man show today. I want to have these ready so that when I've got this positioned, I can slide these puppies in place. I believe there's 6 of them. Got a little rubber mallet here. 4, 5, 6. All right, let's see. Up a little bit. These tabs at the front, they bend. So if you're a little bit short, that's what you need to do is bend those up. All right. Okay, if you get alignment on those holes, it goes pretty easy, but sometimes there's just some debris left in these holes. Makes it kind of hard to see. You can also use a screwdriver to kind of shift the liner around to get it into alignment with a hole. Okay, next we want to put these black pieces of trim back in place. I just test fit this one here to make sure that it would fit with the liner going under it, and it does. So we're just going to put these 2 screws back in and our 10mm bolt. Okay, now that we have these black pieces of trim back in, if you were just purchased the liners, the ceiling liners, no sills, you'd be done. Everything's back together in place. You can see towards the front that those little black pieces of trim help hold up towards the front, but also once you get the partition in place, it's also going to support that up towards the front. So next we're going to install the ceiling sills. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this kit is for the Canadian version and the US version of the ProMaster City. And so there's some pieces that you're not going to use for the sills if you have the Canadian van. Basically, there's a shorter portion, and there's a little connecting plate in your hardware pack to basically connect these two to make a longer sill. That's only going to be for the Canadian version. Since we don't have the Canadian version, we actually don't need these small pieces. So I'm just going to set these to the side. The little rounded spear is for the rear, and the short piece of this bend is on the wall, long piece is on the ceiling. And so it's just going to go back here, and it butts up right up against that black trim, then matches the curvature of the van up here. So all we need for this, you're going to want, again, a drill with the Phillips head bit on it, because we're using self-threading screws to attach this to the liner. This actually goes into the liner and threads into the liner rather than into like actual sheet metal. Sometimes it'll go deep enough to get the sheet metal, but for the most part it's attaching to the liner. So we're going to attach these now. So again, on the edge of these, there are like 4 holes. These two on the far end are for attaching to that other sill plate like I was talking about, so just ignore those and go into the lower one and the upper one. I find it helpful to use gloves because this does have some sharp edges on it. Just going to do a test fit, see where this lines up. We are good in all places. I'm just going to do one into the side right here first. Ceiling. Doesn't take too much to get these to stay in place. There's a hole right here that's going to go into the underside of the, this is a little sheet metal protector where your roof mounting points are for like your ladder racks and all that. This is sheet metal before you get to the ceiling, or before you get to actual roof, so you're not going to go through the roof. If we go through this, I'm going to leave that undone because we have some other work that we want to do and I don't want to go through the sheet metal yet. But I have this basically in place enough so it's going to hold it. It's a lightweight piece of aluminum, so you don't need to go gung-ho. I just have it going into the liner right now. Like I said, when we install these wall liners, I actually have to get behind here for mounting a shelf. So I didn't attach this yet, just so I can have clear access back there. So that's why that looks like that. I'm doing the same thing, similar thing with the ceiling liner, or the ceiling sill as well. But I'll move over to the driver's side now. Okay, same song, second verse over here. Just gonna get it lined up. Sometimes this, where the ceiling and the wall meet, because these are so close together, like this I think is tucked under a screw right there, so I'm actually just going to take rubber mallet and is that covering a screw cap? I can't really tell. But because this is all covered by sill, I'm not super concerned about how that looks. Alright, check for alignment. I like to go into the wall first. So the nice thing about using these holes that are provided in the sills, now you could, it's aluminum, self-threading screw, you could make your own hole, but they line up kind of with safe locations to go through with a screw. Like back here is a cover for this little piece of sheet metal covers where the roof mounting point is. So this is the layer of sheet metal, then there's a gap, then there's the roof. So you're not gonna go through the roof. Same thing right here, there's a cross member that goes right here. So you're going, if you do go through the liner into sheet metal, you're going into the cross member. Same thing right there and in these other locations, so that you kind of line these holes up on where it's safe to put a hole. And that just about does it for the installation of our ceiling liners and sills from Legend in our RAM ProMaster City. Now, if you're looking for these products or any other equipment to upfit your van so that it's work ready, be sure to check us out at upfitsupply.com. Again, my name is Ryan, and have a good one.